All right, good afternoon, everybody. When you move to the end, I have 2 minutes. Okay, well, that's a cool little trick. All right, so what I'm going to share today are a lot of the experiences that I've witnessed and been involved with over the years. So this is, I think, my 32nd year in Radon. The first decade or so, I was with a contractor with EPA, and Radon was really new, and we were trying to figure out which devices worked, whether the laboratories knew what they were doing, and there was a lot of bad measurements being made, you know, back in the day, not necessarily for bad intentions, but we were still learning what we were doing. And then, you know, EPA closed that program down. I went into the real world, and I found the real world was nothing like, you know, the perspectives that I had gained. And so since that time, I've been either in charge of, directly or indirectly, about 2.5 million residential, multifamily, and school measurements. And there are a lot of ways that measurements can get screwed up, and you know, people not really realizing it, and with good intentions. So this is just kind of a list of a lot of the things that I have seen and that I think that we can still do a better job as an industry. And I'm going to hit a button and see if it goes the right way. Hey, there it is. All right, so what is quality? It really depends on who you're asking, but it is the degree of excellence of something. So in the laboratory world, the devices we manufacture and the ones that we analyze, we're looking for accuracy, precision, dependability, defensibility. They have to be detailed and helpful to the clients, our reports do. So the defensibility is really where I think the laboratory world has matured over the last 20 years, especially with the ISO 17025 standards that came out, and the laboratory accreditation programs in New York and New Jersey's auditing are really helping us to know where all of our weaknesses are and to try to prevent those weaknesses from creeping up into an analytical result. So can we defend the result? Yes, if we think we can defend the result, we're going to put that result out there. If there's something wrong with the measurement, our operation, the sample collection itself that we think is going to ruin the integrity and our inability to defend that, the auditors have told us, invalidate it. Don't put out a result if you don't think that you can defend it. Well, from a lab's perspective, we only have a very, you know, narrow view of what that, you know, sample or may have gone through, you know, before it got back to us. So when we're looking at the quality for measurements, of course, we've got the credentialing and the standards, we've got the regulators, we've got the courts, and then of course we have to make our clients happy. So it's all about the happy customer, but that still means we have to be able to defend and give them accurate and defensible results. So in the whole world of a radon measurement from a laboratory, mostly passive devices is, you know, my history. Charcoal cans, alpha tracks, now liquid scintillation vials, continuous monitors. You know, all of them have their strengths and weaknesses. And so all of these have better uses. Sometimes some are weaker in one reason, one is stronger in another reason. So the device design is key here. We need to understand what the devices can actually do. The materials. We're testing those materials, we're testing the charcoal, the CR39 and the alpha tracks, things like that. We have to make sure that they're meeting our specs and we have the ability to test those before they go out into the field. We've got to calibrate those devices and the materials. We've got to package them in a way where they're going to stand the shelf life and they're going to be useful for you all when you actually get them into your hands. And we've got to have clear instructions and so forth. So some of the things that we're in control of, I've kind of mentioned. What we as a laboratory cannot control is the deployment, the retrieval, and the return shipping. So that's kind of what I'm going to focus on. So one of the first things you have to do is you have to know your device. The strengths and weaknesses of those devices are key. For years and years we talked about, I was on, you know, the NRPP board for a long time, even back in the EPA program days. You know, we have to get people to understand the devices they're using. You take the 2-day measurement class and it's a very, you know, quick run through. Here's the devices, here's their strengths, here's their weaknesses, but it's so fast, and it's after we've covered all of the physics and the health effects and all that, that a lot of times it's a blur at that point. So once you've chosen a laboratory or a device, you really need to know that intimately, its strengths, its weaknesses, because they all have strengths and weaknesses. Of course, the standards, they're evolving, they've become more and more stringent, so you now have to use the device to meet the intent of the protocol. So, you know, my perspectives are looking at all of the protocols depending on the house type. It doesn't really matter. Single family, multifamily, school, large building. There are some that are better for those uses as well. Measurement considerations. So as a user of these devices, what kind of a humidity are we going to be exposing this to? What about this temperature? The device log says something about the temperature. Where do I hang this? Where do I deploy it? Which table, which room, which part of the house? Is one enough? How much radon am I expecting to find? It's post-mitigation, it's really low. What devices are good at measuring really low concentrations? Is that gonna change maybe your exposure period? What are your deadlines that your client is expecting? So all of those considerations. Of course, they beat it into our head at the entry-level classes. Stay away from certain things. Heat, stay away from the furnaces. Hot water heaters, not in direct sunlight. Radiators and things like that can alter the operation of a device. Charcoal, for example, when we're done with it and we're going to try to reuse it, we're going to rebake it. So what does heat do? It can drive everything back out of the charcoal, so you don't want to have your devices by a heat source. Yep, the water, all the humidity issues that we may encounter, really wet basements, laundry rooms, things like that. Kitchens, bathrooms, they've been in the protocols for years. Don't test kitchens and bathrooms. Do they affect every device? Maybe not. They definitely affect some devices. But sometimes the way we've written the protocols, if it might, do harm to the credibility of your sampling, just avoid it entirely. The floor plans nowadays, the open floor plans in these, apartments and things can be a challenge. There's a kitchen, there's a, family area, they're right there combined. You put it on the counter right there, in between the two. What do you call that? Don't call it the kitchen, even if it's close to the kitchen, because what's going to happen is it's going to be a red flag on your report. It might be just fine as a placement location, but as soon as you say, I tested the bathroom, I tested the kitchen, you're going to have scrutiny on that report that may mean that it should be invalidated. Moving air. We know that charcoal devices can be negatively affected, or positively affected, I guess, in some cases, by blowing air. It can make them over-respond, so we want to avoid all those types of things. So when you're thinking about humidity, how is that going to impact us? This summer, we had a lot of calls about invalid test results because the charcoal soaked up too much humidity. Some of the folks, I've been in New England for about 3 years now, some of the people that I work with and some of the people that I was talking to have complained this was the wettest, most humid, muggy summer that they've had in a while. And so, you're going in, it's kind of a humid area. How long are you going to leave that device? It's a 2 to 4 day, test device on the instruction sheet. Can that device truly handle 80% relative humidity for 4 days? All right, know your lab, talk to your lab, find out about that. Where is that break point? Can I run a dehumidifier? When can I? What do I avoid? Yeah, sure, run it. Just don't have the test device in the exhaust air coming out of that. So, talk to your lab. We're your partner, and we want to try to help you, help your clients. So, in that instance, go to the shorter period of time. It's a 2 to 4 day test. Just test for 2 days. If you think that, it feels 65, 70% RH, we calibrate in 75% humidity. We can handle it. We just can't handle it forever. So there is a point. But there are also devices that can handle it and are designed to handle more humidity. You just may need a second tool in your arsenal. One size doesn't always fit all. Maybe you've got that 7-day device, which was designed to handle more humidity. Sometimes some houses, because of the air conditioning system, it's a little drier because of that. So, you really need to understand the environment you're called out to test. And in a multifamily environment, you've got maybe 200 different environments that you've got to kind of account for. So the different, apartments, one's 80 degrees, one's 60 degrees, how are you going to handle that? How does your device handle that? So we get a lot of temperature questions. It's 12 degrees. Well, not in the house, it's not. So, you're expected to log your temperature, indoor or outdoor. How about both? Preparing the test area. It's a vacant house. It's 40 degrees in the basement. Can the device handle 40? Well, can the house actually provide you with realistic stack effect at 40 degrees in the basement? Turn the heat on. It's 90 degrees. Turn the air conditioning on the day before you get there, not just when you walk in the front door. So the labs need to know some of this information. It will impact that stack effect. It will, impact the device. Hot devices aren't as, charcoal-based devices aren't as receptive to holding radon than cold devices. So it does change the performance. We can apply the correction factors if you let us know. So on our data sheets, we have the place to tell the temperature. And we don't have to know that it's 68.7, but we need to know if it's 60 or 80. So within about 5 degrees, will make a measurable difference on your test results. We oftentimes get, from homeowners, they just won't put anything. So what we'll do is we'll maybe assume 70 degrees, which is kind of normal. It may never exist, but it's kind of the average that, a lot of houses run under. So if we, as a laboratory, are going to assume, we probably need to note something on the report that says, hey, we used 70 in case we find out later that it was 50. So inside the room, you want to make sure that all the heat, the granite countertops, maybe radon can't, you're not measuring high radon off that granite countertop 2 feet away, 3 feet away, but right on the surface. Can it help to over-respond to the device? It's possible, so just avoid it. One of the other things is a lot of people are still kind of stuck in the mode of one device or one device placement doesn't really matter how big the house is, how many HVAC zones there are, but it really does, if you're going to try to give an accurate and defensible measurement of that house, you need to consider that. Ohio, Illinois, and Minnesota, you have to test over each foundation area. In the standards, it's still kind of the R-Stanzi standard, it's still a should. You should consider additional placements. At what point does it become a shall? You shall test over that, in that basement and over that attached crawl space, or over that slab and the crawl space, because the radon can be totally different. The state of Illinois has been collecting data for a long time. We hope they'll publish it soon because we need to know what it tells us. The preliminary look that I heard was 30 to 35% of the time, the highest radon level in a house was not that lower basement area. It was over a different foundation area. If we have published data like that, then the standards committee can actually start making those shalls. You shall test, multiple levels. But if we were to put that in the shall right now, guess what? It's going to look like the lab guys just trying to sell more test devices. But that's not what we want. That's why we need the scientific data. We need studies that show this is why you have to test these different areas. We know it, we see it, but we have to kind of defend it when we put it in the standards like that. So another thing that I've seen over the years is inventory control. People having old devices sitting side by side with a new device because, oh, I was cleaning out the garage and I found this old box of kits. So devices do expire. They don't last forever. They're not magic. Your storage conditions, just like you would store your food, it will go bad. They can go bad over time. So store them in an area that is going to preserve them. Not high humidity, not low humidity. Well, low humidity is good. Not really high temperatures. And not really too cold, something controlled. You want, and monitor that. Monitor your storage area. Monitor that there's no radon there. An alpha track device, that gets a little puncture, little pinhole in that bag on the outside is going to be measuring radon the entire time it's in storage. So you're going to go out into the field and you're taking the radon with you because it's already registering. How do you know? You monitor and you provide blanks back to the lab, and you can tell whether your devices are still doing their job. So the weather. Part of the weather is I get a lot of calls. There was a test done on this house and it's high. Your device is wrong because 3 months ago we tested and it was low. Well, what's the difference? Your device is bad. We tested with somebody else. I'm kind of a weather nut. I'll get online, I'll go to Weather Underground, I'll look at the hourly. Oh, it rained. The wind direction was 40 miles an hour out of the south during one test. It was calm the other test. A lot of weather influences. So you want to document that thing on your report, because at some point your report could be scrutinized by the next person that tests it, and it's only going to be as good as the quality of your report and the documentation that you've got. Two other things. I know I'm running tight. Chain of custody. We get missing information, especially the ending date and time, dozens of times every single day. It just adds a delay. We can go back and fix it. We can recalculate it. It adds time delays, it adds tension, and it adds drama, especially when your real estate agent is ringing your phone wanting to know why you didn't put the ending date and time on that test device. You've got to have your QA/QC. We go through the QA/QC a lot in some of the CE courses, so nothing, I'm not going to dive really into that, but it's all about your documentation and your procedures. And then one of my last really big pet peeves is never trust the post office. They're going to let you down. It's going to take too long, and it's all going to be because you chose to use that free postage that the lab put on the test device. Please don't do that. Get it back to us within a day or two. You're going to get the best results. You're going to make your customers happy because you've got, a really good turnaround on your reports. Follow the report guidance in the ANSI standard. There's a lot there. There's a lot to document. So the conclusion here is, while we try to do a lot to make sure that we're providing you good devices and good lab services, we're only as accurate as your ability to give us good samples. Crap in, crap out. All right? So don't let those shortcuts sink your business. So thank you. Any questions? All right.
Thank you, Shawn. You want a lavalier or you want this? Okay.